know, we started with Zoom meetings. We're shifting to this first in-person meeting. So again, I appreciate everyone participation to coming on a Thursday night on this weather. Thank you so much, Jeremy and David, for the openings and for getting us started. And thank you for the goals. Reading the goals, reading the ground rules, and we're just getting back and seeing people's faces. And it's great to see all people that I knew from the past meetings, new people, and we're just here to make new connections. So I appreciate everyone's efforts to be here. I wanted to just go over really quick on the meetings format. As you know, we have been trying different things. We have been shifting things around just to accommodate as many people as possible, but also just to, as I mentioned, just bring and build those connections, those relationships with people. As far as this new format that we want to introduce today, so we want to see what will be the standing items on the agenda. So those are the red and the light blue squares that you see on the screen. Also, I just wanted to mention there's a few copies of the presentation on the table. If you're having any issues reading the slides. As far as the facilitating, what we want to do, and we mentioned in the goals, we want to facilitate learning. So part of that facilitation of learning will be this first half of the meeting, where we will have some presentations, some updates on projects and initiatives, and we'll also try to have some community highlights. Today we're very grateful to be in this wonderful park, Field House. So thank you to the Park District for hosting this first in-person meeting. I appreciate it. Yes, thank you. And we are in the community of Garfield Park, and it's always great to recognize the work that has been done in the community and the work that the communities are doing around transportation and mobility. So that will be the first part of the meeting. What we'll do, we'll try to record those sessions and make those available for others after the meeting. The second part of the agenda, that's where we want to start encouraging collaboration. And this is why you see different tables around the room. Each table will facilitate a different conversation. The descriptions for each conversation are also posted on each table. So what we want to do is have the opportunity to comment together as a community and have conversations. I know it is difficult to come to a meeting and be talked at, and we want to change that. We also want you to have a say in setting the agenda. What's the agenda for this meeting? So we'll have that opportunity to do that. And I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. And the other part, which will also be part of every meeting, but would not be specifically an agenda item. So that's why it's a little separately. So the dark blue square, that is a new thing that we're introducing in this meeting. That's what we call it the town hall table. And that's what you see over here on your left or right, depending where you are standing in the room. And we have ambassadors and Jerry from CDOT sitting in there. That would be a space for you to come in, ask general questions about processes, projects, anything about CDOT that you might be wondering about. So we'll always have someone staffing that table. On the table, we also have resources, information about CDOT, about other departments in the city. But also I want to encourage organizations and groups to bring your flyers and your own information about events and meetups and just leave it on that table. So that would be a good way for others to learn what is happening around the city. If we can go to the next slide. Great, and we have invited Angela Taylor, if you are on there in the room. And, all right, so we, unfortunately, our representative from the Garfield Park Community Council, we have someone. Yes, perfect. All right, so thank you so much, Mr. Jason, for so Mr. Jason, it's here instead of Mrs. Taylor, and he will just be mentioning some things about what his organization, which is Garfield Park Community Council, are doing in Garfield Park. There's a lot of exciting things that they're doing, and I'll just give the floor. So, just a few things, highlights of what you guys are doing.
I'm Jason Ferguson. I'm a coach, Jason. I'm a track coach in the community, as well as I work with Garfield Park Community Council as like an independent contractor. Last summer, we did a walkability assessment on Pulaski from the green line to the blue line, looking for safety and being safe walking in the community. Whether there were lights out missing, whether there were a lot of bushes and trees growing up, but maybe in hiding, whether there was a lot of graffiti, the abandoned buildings, the lots. We looked at all of that stuff and we put some of that to the alderman. Some changes have been made. The curb cuts that you see on Madison from Central Park down to Pulaski, we're kind of responsible for getting that done. If you notice, you probably haven't been to the basketball court. We have a brand new basketball court. Jabari Parker donated money, and myself, I was out there painting and helped Green Union Park. They just repaved all the walkabouts throughout the park, so people can actually run through the park now. And as you know, June 5th was the first half marathon in Garfield Park. I was probably one of the few people from Garfield Park that ran in the half marathon. No training, just up and down. Those are some of the things. I think Bank of America bringing that half marathon here is going to do something for the West Side. So I think a lot of the walkability and some of the things that you guys are doing is going to help motivate that and encourage that. So how many people here outside of myself live in Garfield Park? It's a couple. It's just a concern that I have. A lot of times things go on in Garfield Park. I may be the only person in the community that find out about it. So I wish there was a way that we could start getting the word out and other people coming into Garfield Park to take advantage, not saying you guys are, some of you might be, take advantage of the resources here. There's so many beautiful resources. Unfortunately, a lot of people in my community that live here, they don't take advantage of it. A lot of times they aren't in the know. So I'm going to get back because I can probably get going and going. But a little more information about the people knowing what's going on. I can only tell so many people. Thank you.
To the next thing in our agenda, which is our presentation. As I mentioned, part of the first half of this meeting, we still want to provide information about what CDOT is doing. And today we're providing a brief presentation about the strategic plan update. And I'll have Jamie Simone, who is one of our deputy commissioners at the department, to share a few remarks about this initiative.
Okay, I just wanted to mention for the people standing up in the back, there are some chairs in the front, and feel free to walk as I'm talking to come take some seats. And there looks like there's one more chair in the middle there too, but there's about 3 up here, 2 up here, and we'll hopefully be able to spare up a couple more chairs when we get into the table conversation so everyone can have a seat. You go to the next slide. So some of you may have been involved in or have already heard us talk about our strategic plan that was released 2 summers ago now, June of 2021, and we've been working towards implementing the goals in the plan ever since then. The plan is online. You can read the whole thing there, cityofchicago.org/CDOT strategic plan. And today we just published on the same website the 1-year update to the strategic plan. So I'm just going to go through it quickly to introduce you to the document, and you can look at the entire thing online. So you can go to the next slide. So it's organized much like the original document was. Oh, and by the way, there are some copies of the original strategic plan document over there at the city, or what were we calling it? The town hall table. But again, it is online. So it's got a pretty simple format. It's laid out with 4 chapters that are like the 4 main pillars of the plan, and then all the goals are listed in there. There's a page also that shows you how to use the plan and how to understand what's written in the plan. So the first chapter of the plan is access to opportunity. The little dots that you see on the left lay out the goals from the original plan as like a reminder. And then what you'll see on each of the subsequent pages are different things that we've accomplished in the last year that achieve those goals or get us towards achieving those goals. So if you go to the next slide, there's an example here of some of the work that we've done to improve accessibility throughout the neighborhoods. An example is an increase in the shared cost sidewalk program. We've done a lot of ADA ramps, particularly around polling places. And then on the bottom, I'm sorry that this isn't as easy to read in this space, but again, it's online, you can see the whole thing. Some highlights of some of the pedestrian and bike improvements that have come along with arterial resurfacing over the last year. The next chapter is aligning our streets with our values. This has to do a lot with funding, both modernizing the kinds of funding that we typically use, but also being poised to get federal funding. So on the next slide, you'll see in August this year it was announced that we won $20 million in federal funding to support the Englewood Nature Trail, and you may have seen that in the news. There have been some ongoing community meetings. The third chapter is Streets Free from Violence, which is where a lot of the Vision Zero and other kind of safety improvements or teaching, you can see the Learn to Ride program and the Bike Chicago program, but on the next slide, the Chicago Mobility Collaborative is mentioned, and then the majority of this page is about some of the partnerships we've had with community organizations to do the Alfresco program. We did that also in partnership with Choose Chicago. And then the two pictures on the right are from the Chicago Loop Alliance and the Sundays on State programs that they did. Those were about getting people to use their streets in different ways and also recovery efforts to bring back business and activity since the pandemic. The last chapter is a CDOT that works. And this one is a lot about how we work internally together to improve what we're doing, to have external impact, but also how we're communicating with the public. So if you go to the next one, the highlights here, internal process efficiencies, there's like new programs that we're working to bring online to better manage projects and manage our assets. We've also had some additional training for staff. And then the top right there is about a couple of new key positions. One is a safety administrator, and then the other is the director of outreach and engagement, which is Romina Castillo. You didn't say your name, but I assume she knows everybody in the room, and that's why she felt she didn't need to introduce herself. So anyway, that's the whole document. Again, I just wanted to go through quickly to give you an overview. It is available online, cityofchicago.org/CDOT strategic plan. And again, you can see the original document there, as well as the year one update.
Thank you. And there were some copies, I think a few of you grabbed some copies of the document. So yeah, feel free to scan it. It is online, as Jamie mentioned, but if you want to see it and touch it, it is here. So please feel free to browse the document. And yes, I jumped right into business. We're running a few minutes late, but let me just take a step back and again reintroduce myself. My name is Romina Castillo. I'm the Director of Outreach and Engagement. You probably have received emails from me if you have reached out to the department. I'm happy to meet with people if you have any questions after the meeting. I'm looking forward to meeting more of you. So I want to introduce the community tables, as I mentioned previously at the beginning of the meeting. You're sitting in one of the tables. After I go over, what this is all about, feel free to also move around if you want to sit at a different table before we start the conversations. But what are the community tables? So that we have a description, and I don't want to read the vision statement for the community tables, but what I want to highlight is the goal of the community tables is to foster dialogue, to really focus on conversations, community dialogues, bringing your own experience, and sharing it with other Chicagoans. And the outcome of it is to really start creating that community and bringing your own priorities to the agenda of this meeting. CDOT does not want to be the one setting the agenda every single meeting. We want your ideas to have a space to bring your questions and really have a dialogue with other people. And this might be a little confusing diagram. And just to simplify that, this will be an ongoing process happening and starting at the end of each meeting. Which that means that at the end of this meeting, we'll have a form that will open up and be online, and you can submit your ideas for community conversations. Our leadership group, which we introduced in our last meeting, but at this point, I would just ask our leadership group members if you can just raise your hand or stand up so that people can identify some of you. We have them in all the tables. So these are a group of community leaders, and they will be the ones who will be reviewing your submissions. So it would not be CDOT, it would be this leadership group reviewing those submissions. And then we'll just identify what would be those priorities for the next meeting. And if you submit an idea, you'll have the opportunity to facilitate a conversation. Today we have members of our leadership group and also a few members of the CDOT staff facilitating the conversations so that we can model the way that we want to engage at those tables. So again, you'll be able to submit your ideas will be reviewed, and I'll be reaching out to each one of those facilitators for the following meeting, just to help you, guide you through the facilitation, ask if you need any resources, so I'll be able to provide like pens and tables and whatever you need to be able to facilitate your conversation with other people. Then at the meeting, of course, we'll meet, you'll have your conversation, and during the conversation, we want to identify what are those actionable next steps. What is the goal of the conversation? That's something that we want to know. And after the meeting, hopefully we'll find opportunities to collaborate with CDOT, with other departments, with other groups. And hopefully by the following meeting, we can provide, or the group can provide some updates of what is happening. And again, today that will be an opportunity to model how we want to have those conversations, what are the type of outcomes that we want to have, and hopefully there will be an opportunity to, as I mentioned, just start building that community, mobility community in Chicago. So yeah, I just went through this pretty quickly. So the form, we have some QR codes on your tables already, so that is the form that you'll be filling out. You can feel free to scan it at any time so you can have an idea what the form, what it looks like. And it just has 10 questions. Some of the questions ask things like, what is the goal of the conversation? What are the outcomes that you expect from the conversation? What is the issue or opportunity? And finally, who is the most impacted by that issue that you're describing? Alrighty, so we have been talking a lot at you, and this is time for you to have this conversation. So today we have 4 community tables. The community table, the first one, that is facilitated by Grace, and that is in the back. Grace, if you can just stand or raise your hand. Thank you. And Grace will be speaking and facilitating a conversation about walkability assessments, about how to get started, where to go from there. She will present her own experience in Chinatown leading a walkability assessment and showing you what kind of document and data the community gathered. So I think that would be a great conversation to have. Table number 2, it's over here, facilitated by Jamie and Erica from our CDOT team. They'll facilitate a conversation about the Slow Down Chicago campaign. That would be an opportunity to just learn a little bit more of what we're thinking as far as campaign goes for speed reduction or speed limits and what speed does or how speed impacts our streets, and how we can actually roll out educational campaign in your communities. Table number 3, that will be over here. So Ishmael and Garth, if you can just raise your hand. So I'll be facilitating that table with Garth and Ishmael from our leadership group meeting, from leadership group members. And we'll just be talking a little bit more about next year. What are the type of conversations that you want to have? What are the type of topics that you want to learn at this meeting? So we'll just be collecting ideas and having a conversation about what is important, the importance of this meeting, what you want to see, what you want to learn. And the last table, that will be over here with Jeremy and David. And they'll be facilitating a table about mobility, equity, advocacy, and talking about their own experience in Belmont-Cragen, but most importantly, how that translates to other communities and how other communities can implement some of the strategies that they've been doing in Belmont-Cragen. Alrighty, so I think Our next slide is just, we'll just break into conversations, and we'll have about, let's say, 40 minutes for those conversations. The last thing I would say is feel free to rotate at any point of the so much for your time and energy on our table. So I'm going to ask a representative from each table to just recap just 1 quick minute what the conversation was about. So I'll be asking you please to elevate the outcomes of the presentation. So what are the most important and the priorities from your discussion? Also, if there's any next steps or actions that are coming from this conversation, please share those as well. And if you also discuss how people want to get involved outside of this meeting, based on the conversations that you have had and the topics, also please share some. So we're gonna get started with table 1. So I think table 1 is coming.
All right, so the main points the main points we talked about, we were talking about walkability, and so we were covering like a lot of things like road design, which is, I know, over there too, but like really affects how people feel like walking places. Like a lot of people ride their bikes on the sidewalks and walk on the sidewalks, and the sidewalks are in terrible conditions. Another thing we talked about is like all of a sudden it snows, and we have all these vacant lots, and the people, the landlords or whoever owns these vacant lots aren't taking care of them. So they're not shuffling the walks, and so you see everyone walking the street all of a sudden. Like people are getting hit by cars coming out of alleys. There's not a lot of places to walk at the city's like closing down big local businesses like 111. That's it. I guess most people aren't from the city. But anyways, so that's a lot of what we talked about. Did I miss anything? I think that pretty much covers what
What do we decide?
Oh yeah, so our follow-ups are, there's something called the CLOP, which is like a survey that you can do. That's like a process where you like work with your community to evaluate walkability concerns in your neighborhood, and they'll work with you to produce a report. There was one done for Chinatown. Coach Jason did one for Pulaski, and the Garfield Park area. And is there any other follow-up?
We'll be sending out the info to the.
Oh yeah, we're going to be sending out the info on that one. So that pretty much covers it.
Good job. Thank you.
Okay, I think table 2 is okay.
You probably have to ask.
Yes, definitely.
And you all hear me okay? All right, great. So I'm going to try my best to be representative of synthesized key points. So our topic was thinking about slowing down car traffic in Chicago. We have a lot of bikers and pedestrians and also fellow drivers at the table. So we kind of centered around the street, use enforcement, education, engineering, so like infrastructure. As far as education, a couple things. So more signs, more context as to what is the speed limit, so people are aware up front. In certain places there seems to be a little bit of disparity with that. And then also education for those problematic drivers, people that are breaking laws, how do we kind of enforce that more? Infrastructure or engineering, I think the consensus overall is like more bike lane infrastructure, more robust, like concrete barriers, things like that. Again, there's some disparity in different neighborhoods depending on where you live. And then I think the other thing too that came up was like more transparency in the decision-making process and how these decisions or problems are raised, evaluated, prioritized, and ultimately solutions are implemented. I think we've all had some kind of lived experiences as far as some good examples of things that have happened, but understanding the context to how we get from there, here to there, is not always clear to us, even being at this table, and certainly we feel for like our peers, our fellow residents as well. So getting more transparency, like how that starting to end process actually works. Okay.
Already, table 3. Okay.
So our table was focused on what we want to see from these meetings going forward. Number one thing was more frequent meetings. Quarterly isn't good enough, and we need them to be more specialized, more focused. You know, because these are very broad, we can't cover everything in an hour and a half. And going off of that, we want to see one specifically addressing the huge amount of traffic fatalities for pedestrian cyclists that we've had. How are we addressing those? If studies exist after those, how can we take those studies and take them to an older person and get them addressed? The other thing is accessibility. There needs to be a virtual option so people can at least attend and listen, if not always give input. And also, as far as differently abled people, there's theoretically an elevator here, but the person at the front desk didn't know about it. Other than that, we want more actionable things coming out of these meetings. We want to know what are the problems that CDOT is having in implementing some of these safe street stuff, and what we can do, how they can, because there's a lot of advocates here. We're powerful. We'll get out there, and the advocacy movement is growing. We want to know how can we help CDOT pressure older people, pressure the mayor to get this stuff done. Because the biggest frustration with these meetings is it feels like nothing comes of them. So we want to know how can we get out there and help you guys do your job, because we're tired of people dying. So we want to get that done. And the other thing we want to leverage is this asynchronous input. Is we want people to be able to go online, maybe an app, and give input as to where the problem areas are, and what do we want to see addressed, because there's a lot of people who don't have time to show up to these meetings, and also CDOT personnel, there's not many of them here. So if we have a way to let CDOT know what we want to see addressed, other than the 311 app, because that's useless. So CDOT can then come to these meetings knowing what our concerns are, and then tell us how they're going to address them.
Then table 4.
Hi. We had a great case study from Belmont Cragen about how they had a community member who experienced it during right before the pandemic, and they turned that into advocacy for biking and better infrastructure in their community. They partnered with CDOT to start building out a better bike network, and they also got the Divvy expansion rolling. So we all learned a lot about that, and then we discussed how we can take that to our own communities and use that for our own advocacy. We talked about approaching Alderman's office and working with CDOT. And then some of us also brought up that we'd like to see this whole system kind of change and flip on its head so that we don't have to beg for things from CDOT and from our aldermen, and that these safety should be standard citywide. And BRT.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much again for coming and joining our first in-person meeting. Yes, we hear loud and clear. We appreciate your valuable feedback. Again, you have my name, my email on that slide. I also have printed slides of the presentation each table, so feel free to take one copy if you'd like to. The deck will be uploaded on the website alongside with a video of the presentation or conversations, part of the conversation. I want to remind everyone we have a post meeting survey. You can scan the QR code. We have the QR codes on the tables as well. Also, as you're exiting, we have the table up front with Caro and Edwin over there. You have the QR codes as well. And the last also flyer and thing that I want to remind everyone is the QR codes and the forms for the community tables for the following meeting. We'll definitely be sending more information on how we're going to be meeting. I think meeting more frequently or having more specific meetings will be great. We also talk about site visits on table number 3, so we'll be sending out more information on that, and hopefully we can start the 2023 on the right path and on the right foot or with the right tires, I don't know, and then just get rolling and get walking towards a more equitable and safer streets here in Chicago. So thank you again for participating. We ended right on time. We have 1 minute back